welcome everyone to Day 2 of LEC 2024 Spring Playoffs live from the Riot Games Arena in Berlin, Germany. By the looks of it, BDS is trying to throw a magical spell to hopefully break some of the negative curses that they've had so far in terms of their win streak. Either way, hello everyone, I am Ginny and I'm joined on the floor this time around with the average jungle enjoyers, Broxa and Jamada.
Yeah, you've got the jungle experience today on the desk. There's definitely no bias will be going on with the analysis with that in mind.
Average jungle enjoyer is a compliment, right?
It better be.
Absolutely, right? You guys only flame everyone else on your team except yourselves, so right, that's how it goes. But either way, yesterday, Vitality and Fnatic stayed on top because they both managed to secure their wins in their respective games. Looking at these games particularly, it felt more from the side of Fnatic that it was very dominant, whereas Vitality, the fact that it went to 3 games and also the way that game went, bro, like, I don't know what was going on.
I'm curious to see how today's series are going to go, because if it's anything like yesterday, it could be like, you know, you said Fnatic, GX, really one-sided. Oh, are we going to have this same style as Vitality SK, where it's complete clown fiestas and craziness all around? I'm kind of hoping for that kind of spice, not going to lie.
I think we'll probably get out of Heretics BDS a little bit. I don't know where I want to go with D2 Mad, but yesterday as well, like you said, Fnatic 2-0 GX. I just kind of feel bad for GX. I feel like they ended up with 2 relatively rough drafts to play out, and Fnatic were just really in form.
Yeah, today we have the remaining upper round 1 matches, but also a daily reminder. We don't just have League yesterday, today, and tomorrow. This is Mega Week, which means that thankfully on Tuesday we're going to be looking at even more games. Clown Fiestas, whatever you want to call it, depends on you. Either way, the first thing that we saw yesterday, what really caught our attention was the changes and the swaps a little bit in meta, particularly when it comes to the compositions that the teams would like to run. We saw a great balance of whether you want to go for picks or whether you want to focus more on team fights. So Broxa, break it down.
Yeah, we talked about it a fair amount that, you know, this weekend we're playing on a different patch. 14.6 has brought buffs to crit items, buffs to tanks, and there's 2 different ways to approach playing on the current patch. One is the teamfight champions, tank top, control mage mid, strong, scaling, crit, AD carry in late game, or you can go the more execution-based route.
Yeah, exactly right. And the execution-based route is kind of the risk versus reward kind of style of play, I feel like, majority of the time. With the team fighting champions, you're getting what's on the tin, right? You know you're going to get solid scaling, 2 items, 3 items, you're really going to be online. Before then, you might have to be a little bit more reserved. These execution-based champions, you need to play around a little bit more proactively. You need to ensure that you're giving them resources, setting them up for success, so that in the mid-game they can really smash through some of these 2-item power spike-esque kind of champions and effectively kind of snowball it into an earlier game victory.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the compositions, though, when we're looking at the picks, we're looking at the team fighting, is there anything particularly that you would prefer or that you think has been more reward-heavy?
I think it probably depends on the team more than anything. I think it seemed like G2 could have a lot of success playing strong early games, strongly, or like really strong, highly mechanical champions and just getting an advantage on snowballing, whereas many others, like, let's say BDS, for example, like, this is their ball game. Ice on a, you know, strong scaling AD carry, pick Cyan for Adam, looking at control mage mid. They're going to look really good in this patch, I think.
Yeah, and that more or less is really going to be the divide between, you know, the remaining teams here in playoffs, is are they going to kind of move over to effectively just traditional front to back, or are they going to try and, you know, try their luck at these champions which need a little bit more, you know, prowess to really execute on, which, you know, can grant you those big rewards, but you have to ensure that you're playing on your execution thresholds. All
right, split pushes particularly, that's something that we already touched upon a little bit, but I want to dive into it a bit further, because when we're looking at the split pushing, it does have its rewards as well, but sometimes it just kind of like everyone gets caught.
Yeah, I think the problem is that a lot of the games that we're seeing in Europe come down to team fights around objectives, and if you have a really simple front-to-back team fighting comp, it's very easy to execute, whereas if you lock in something like the Twisted Fate, for example, you need to be able to utilize the side lanes, push out deep inside, create a number advantage, and then fight. But a lot of the teams tend to kind of skip the setup phase. They just walk to the objective and fight immediately. And if one side has a Twisted Fate top and the other one has a Cyan, well, it's going to be a tough time.
Yeah, and I feel like we've yapped about it a lot of times over the years, right? Low execution against high execution, and why, you know, the differences in these 2 playstyles are so important. But I feel like in this meta at the minute, we are going to be in a very big crossroads between, okay, our team just going to go back to what they've been used to playing over the many, many years of professional League of Legends, or are they going to try and stick to, you know, not necessarily previous patch, but what they've kind of become a little bit more accustomed to with some of these champs on the left-hand side? That's going to really be the big question between the teams that we haven't seen play yet.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be looking at today, particularly for Heretics up against BDS. You already touched upon it a little bit in terms of BDS and how they do like to approach their games more from those team fighting compositions. But again, that's a question that remains to be answered. But as we look ahead to our first series of the day, we actually had the lovely Trouble sit down with Adam for a check-in. So let's see what they had to say. Trouble, take it away.
Thank you very much, Ginny. Adam, thank you so much for joining me ahead of your game versus Team Heretics. We had a little chat about the upcoming series, but I'm going to get there later. First off, I want to ask you, and reference Oscarinin yesterday, he talked a lot about, the front-to-back meta coming back and how it doesn't feel necessarily very rewarding playing tanks when you're AD carry and your mid laner want to play the front-to-back. However, if you do win a tank versus tank matchup, it feels different. What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like in front-to-back meta, I would say, if it's tank versus tank matchup, this is where, like the best player will actually show up in the lane. And this is where, like you can actually put your ego in the game and like, I will crush you, for example. And if you manage to do so, your ego goes to the sky actually. So it feels really great. I can feel.
Because it feels like if you load in with like an Olaf or a Darius, you're expected to play aggressive. You're expected to kind of stomp your lane. But if you stomp your lane with an Ornn and no one's expecting
You're Chad. You're Giga Chad.
You're a Giga Chad.
You're a Giga Chad, actually, yeah.
Now, of course, talking about the front-to-back, Azir merchants reunite. Azir is back. And we know that Nuke is also an Azir merchant
You
himself.
think so?
I mean, his match history says that on the LEC.
Maybe not. I don't know.
So you can't tell us anything about this? The confidence in the team with Azir coming back and playing that again?
I mean, yeah, since Azir is like coming back, probably some teams will have priority on it. I don't know which teams, obviously, but
We can't tell.
yeah, like the draft will be slightly different from the best of ones of this split. So yeah, we'll need to see.
Now, coming into this series, you guys are having deja vu. As Winter split, you playing again Team Heretics in your first playoffs game. You two owed them over in Winter. However, you did beat them in regular season in Winter, and now you lost to them. You're 0-1. How do you feel going into this series in terms of confidence?
Well, I would say that Heretics had the momentum this split for best of ones, but I do believe best of three is different type of game, and I would be really surprised actually if they beat us. Honestly, I would be really surprised because I don't expect us to lose today. We should be able to win. So yeah.
Are you guys prepared for the Nocturne, potentially, jungle? That's what haunted you last time.
I mean, like they had a good draft against us in best of one. It was a bit hard to execute from our side, but we're just pretty confident coming for this best of three.
All right, BDS form coming back to life. Adam, thank you very much for joining me, and good luck in your game versus Team Heretics.
Thank you.
Jeannie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Trouble. I mean, looking at the responses that we just got, he seems very confident. He said he would be shocked if Heretics win. But looking at Winter particularly, Heretics had an early exit. BDS placed third. So this is the redemption arc for Heretics. But from BDS's perspective particularly, they need to lock things down because Spring has not been looking the best.
Yeah, I think if we look at last split, up until the very last point where Adam was off the team for a little while, they looked really solid. They looked like a team that could actually contest. But ever since they played without Adam and he's come back, they've looked so inconsistent more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been very up and down. I think part of that is also attributed to they were the team that really relied on Ice as a utility, like AD carry. Ashe, Varus, those are kind of his bread and butter, even a little bit of Jhin. Whereas from kind of the back end of playoffs in Winter to the start of Spring, they were probably the team that had to change the most out of that identity to trying to play a little bit more front to back, trying to enable Adam a little bit more in team fights. So I think that plays into that level of inconsistency. But thankfully, the meta has also shifted a little bit in their favor whilst already adapting to that playstyle.
Yeah, speaking on teamfights, particularly from BDS, we've seen some great things. We've seen some oopsies. We've seen some not so great things. So in terms of their team fights and the setups, how has that particularly been playing out for them?
Well, I have a telestrator here to
of course you do.
break that down. So I've got a good and a bad clip. We're going to go over the good one first, and we're really going to highlight sort of the ideal scenarios that BDS tend to put themselves in and find themselves in. This is the game against Fnatic. They were already quite ahead, but this is all about the setup for it, right? And if we kind of bring up the clip, you can see it behind us. As I kind of just rolled, if we just let this roll out a little bit, you can see there's no control for Fnatic right now. This is all BDS favored. And Fnatic, it's complete fog of war. If we take a pause right here on this fog of war, they have to pretty much guess. It's all guesswork on where exactly someone's going to approach from. They're working with potentially someone in this bush, someone down in this bush, and then if once the fog actually unfolds and we allow some of this clip to play further, they'll see Nuke controlling this choke as well. So Fnatic, they're really, really worried, and you can see Adam in the bush, take a pause right here, Adam waiting in the bush, and he's got a very free angle basically onto anyone he wants. He's waiting for the Labrov engage. It's a little bit delayed, but this is what we're talking about. Labrov in a position to set up someone like Adam's coming on the flank, and if we let this play out, you'll pretty much see Noah isn't allowed to play the game at all. He pretty much gets 100 to 0'd, and whilst Fnatic are trying to make a little bit of work happen on the backside of the fight, Adam is pretty much 1v3ing, 1v4ing the entirety of Fnatic, and this is kind of the ideal setups that BDS are consistently looking for around these objectives. They're looking for Labrov setup to enable Adam to really dive the backline, or enable Nuke if he's on that kind of champion to also do that. That's a good scenario. Let's take a look at a bad one, because sometimes they get a little bit lost in this source specifically, where they're trying to find these 5v5s and it doesn't always play out the way that they want it to. So this is a slightly different game against Mad Lions Koi, where as you kind of take a look at the mini-map, trying to find, there we go, take a look at the mini-map, you can see up here, Nico in the top side, pushing out this lane, and even though I know it's not highlighted down here, it's highlighted down here rather as Adam not having teleport, he does have teleport. This is just BDS trying to force a 5 versus 4 because they know they're a little bit worried about this split push and they have to try and force a fight. But the issue is they don't really have setup. If we let this clip now play out, it's Mad Lions Koi with enough information to work on, and Adam starts basing on this ward because he has to go and answer the top lane push. Mad Lions Koi see this as an opportunity then to force their way into the river, and BDS, if we take another pause right here, you've already got the teleport coming down from Nico right over here, and Adam is still taking his recall. They don't actually know the teleport is even happening. He's just off fog. So if we let it play out, Adam's then forced into a very awkward teleport angle where he doesn't actually get access to the backline, and the Brov isn't on a rail this game, he's on the Renata. So it's no big setup on the backline for a dive. It's just really, really awkward. And then eventually after the initial engage, they look for a retry and it doesn't play out the way that they want to because they use too many resources, whereas Mad Lions didn't really have to use much on the force in. And this is what we kind of see sometimes with BDS, some of that level of inconsistency where they'll look for the same sort of set plays, but the setup isn't always there for them in a perfect manner.
I think this is a perfect example of what BDS are really good at, but also what their issue is, where if they're in the driving seat, they're so good at these setups. Like, they literally did, you know, what we saw against Fnatic, not once, but 3 times in a row to win the game. But if they're having to play from behind, if they're a little bit slow on the play, they are a little bit confused when it comes to retaking, and then things can get a little bit sketchy.
Yeah, and guess what? Champion is really, really good at team fighting, is back. We saw it 5 games out of 5 yesterday. Like, anyone want to...
Is it the bird?
Gamba? It is a bird, yeah.
Ah.
That's the Azir.
It is Azir. And when we're looking at Nuke, particularly as a player on Azir, 7 wins and 2 losses. That's way better than my solo queue stats. I'm pretty sure yours as well, Jamal. I'm not throwing you under the bus here. But when you're looking at any champion that is not Azir, it doesn't necessarily translate into that kind of amount of success.
I think he just fits both Nuke and what BDS wants to do so well. Like, he's such a great control mage player, but Azir's a very nice middle ground where, you know, you can play more aggressive, you can actually control the lane pretty well early on. With Azir, you can set up team fights with engages, you don't need anybody to peel for you. He's just kind of self-sufficient in that sense, and I think when Nuke is on Azir, his synergy with Shio and the way that he can set up his jungle up for success and play aggressive is really, really on point.
Yeah, and it's particularly that mid lane that we've highlighted, but it's also going to be a bot lane. We have Ice going up against FLICKR, and that's another very huge part, especially for BDS and the driving force in terms of getting those team fights going.
Yeah, and you know, we've spoken a lot about Ice, and you know, for me it's about that adaptation and change from winter to spring, but also FLICKR, in my mind, I'll just say it flatly, I think he's individually right now, he's the best performing AD carry in the league. There's obviously arguments for a couple of other AD carries, like this man right here, Ice, but I feel like FLICKR has really taken it to the next level. But also I think, you know, Trimby coming in has really enabled him to find a lot more space inside of some of these team fights that Heretics are finding.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that we're going to have to keep our eyes on, but we're ready to head into the first game of the series. Heretics going up against BDS with Dagda and Dracos.